But like I said, I mean, the main difficulty for me wasn't even the foil, I would say. When it comes to actually riding, it was the conditions I had on my first 1 or 2 attempts. And that was because, like you said, you had the equipment there. So you were just like, okay, let's get out on the water.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, I mean, we know something about your equipment. We know something about what would probably have made your life easier.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your first session, like getting on the board, getting planing, getting foiling. Like, how did it go?
Well, like I said, I found it quite easy. I think if you have board sports experience, especially in water sports, it helps a lot to kind of get the feeling of the board and be able to stand up and not feel like, because the main problem for people with no experience in water sports is they stand up and they're like, oh my God, this is wobbly. But for you that for someone that knows how to windsurf, kitesurf, or whatever, you stand up and you're like, yeah, it's supposed to be wobbly. Like it'll straighten out. So you're much more relaxed during your first go. So I found it quite easy to get up. Obviously, I took some advice from people and from YouTube, like, okay, get up on your knees first. And then I got the wing in the air and I took power. And the moment you hold the power in the wing, I think everything kind of stabilizes and you feel much safer to take that step and get yourself up on the board. And of course, any board experience will tell you that keep your body weight over the center of the board. Right? Because I did give it to someone else to try and they were like getting up and they were completely hanging back on the first step up because they thought like, oh, the wind is going to pull me forward or something. So, you got to understand that your weight has to stay over the board. You're not, it's not windsurfing or kite surfing that you're connected to something. And it's not that much power. So yeah, I got up. It was quite easy. Experience helps a lot from water sports, obviously. But what I realized on the first sessions was that I needed much more wind than I thought I would need. Because like I said, I have no experience in this. I haven't researched it and I'm not a foiler. So I thought, 10 knots will be plenty. All these guys are flying with 10 knots. Obviously, it's not true for your first time. So I took the wing foil out and it was a combination of really not enough wind. Like I had around 10 knots and gusty wind. But it was also in a wave spot where we normally do like wave sailing, but the wind wasn't enough. So the waves was still there. This is the spot you see on the video. That's where I'm first riding. And as you can see, when I take like an image of someone filming from the beach, you can see that there is quite a lot of waves, especially shore break. So obviously that doesn't help with standing up, feeling comfortable and all that, and even getting up on the foil. But the problem was I didn't have enough wind. Like I had 10 knots and I was like, I was thinking, shit, I thought this would be much more easy to get up. And I was doing, because I have done windsurf foiling and from my first experience with that, although it's not much, I realized you have to kind of pump the foil out. So I was even trying that and I was trying a bit of everything, obviously not very well, but I was trying it and it was just not getting up. And I was like, oh, I thought this would need, less wind. And at the end, the wind came up a little bit and some gusts were coming in and it was like hitting 15 knots. And that's when on my video, again, you see me getting up, like when it hit the 15 knot mark. Of course, I think that now, when I was riding like the third, fourth, fifth time in another spot, and it was like pump and jump, but very calm because there's not much wind and it was 15 knots, maybe not even, I was getting up much, much easier, like after a little bit of experience. But on the first session, I was definitely go with some decent wind. Make it easy on yourself because I lost so much energy just pumping, trying to get up. And I just lost all my energy. And after like 3 rides, I came out and I was dying on the beach. And I was thinking, this is not working. And I'm so tired already. I've been out for like half an hour, oh my God. But at the end, it came and I did it. And I realized what I'm telling you now. Make sure you have some decent wind. I would say if you have like a 5-meter wing like me, at least 15 knots. Like I think you need at least that. Later on, you can ride in less, obviously, but for the beginning, at least some decent wind.
And what were some breakthroughs that you had? Like maybe when you get up, did you have the problem that you get the wingtip in the water, for instance?
Yes, for sure. And I actually, again, I mentioned this on my video because on my videos, of course, on my channel, I'm talking more to windsurfers. And I think windsurfers have a big problem with this. Or will have a big problem with this, especially because in windsurfing, you always push down on the boom. You kind of create mass foot pressure. So your first instinct when you get up is you grab power and you try to control the board by pushing down the wing. But this does not work in wingfoiling. All it did was catch the wing, and it just takes the wing away, like flips it away from you, and it's down on the water, and you have to start all over again. So for sure, this was a big problem. Like I kept doing it the first few rides. I kept touching the wing down until I really got used to keeping it up. And this was another difficult thing. Like part of what made me tired was because the wind was light. When I was trying to keep the wing up, you kind of had to use your muscle the whole time instead of relying on the wind, because sometimes there was no wind to keep the wing up. So I was like pushing it up myself. And I came out the next day, my shoulders were so sore. So I definitely, more wind, and be careful of catching the wind on the water. You have to keep it higher. For many people, it might kind of come obviously, but I think especially windsurfers will have a problem with this.
Maybe one thing that I learned teaching some guys wingfoiling is like the middle strut, where you normally have the handles or the boom or whatever wing you have. It has it's a little bit like with kite surfing. If you imagine a clock, like in kite surfing, you want to have the kite on 12 o'clock. So you never want it like really on 9 or on 3 o'clock. So, and if you imagine the middle strut being a pointer on a watch, you can imagine like it has to be on 1 o'clock or 11 o'clock, It should not be here when you're still planing. You can have it like on 9 or 3 o'clock when you are already on the foil, but this is like far away. So pointing it up to the sky, and then if you feel like you have to pull the wing up, you just sheet in with your backhand a little bit. But when you sheet in, make sure you're just sheeting in, you're not like turning it. So and that's kind of something you need to figure out like while you're still on land. That saves you like 1 hour on the water.
Definitely. I think this is a good advice for, again, anybody starting for the first time. And this is something, again, I didn't do. Like I did 5 minutes on land. I was like, oh this feels good. Okay, me too. I go in, and you go in and you end up being like, I should have practiced this on the beach. Like I should have practiced this on land. This is I could have done this on a much easier place. But definitely work on the kite kind of controls. And on the beach, obviously, like for many things. And I think another big problem I had, and something that was really tiring, and until recently, until I watched the video, I still wasn't sure how to deal with it, was when the wing falls on the water. And it's upside down, you're like, and it kind of gets stuck there. And if you try to, even if you're kneeling on your board and you try to grab the middle handle, the middle strut, and you kind of flip it, it doesn't want to do it. It's too stuck on the water and too big in diameter for you to be able to actually flip it with your height on the board. And after watching obviously some videos and searching for some advice, that's why I said people should do more research than me before they start, at least on the basics. It's you have to like kind of let the wing go, and you go to the end, kind of the tip of the wing, and you flip it from there. And then it flips much easier. Don't be, because I'm sure a lot of people must have seen me in the water thinking this guy is drowning or fighting or having anger issues with the wing or something, because I'm sitting there like, turn around. And it's not like, it's so hard to turn it around. Like I think very basic things like that with the wing control, wing positioning, setting up, getting started. This will save so much time and so much energy if you practice them first on the beach, on land, depending where you are.
And also like, this is like really like coming from a place where I want to help, not like sell anything. But if you have the chance to rent something for the first couple of sessions and to get some instructions, doesn't matter if it's at your center or at Fehmarn, because we also had a podcast with the guys from windsurfing school Fehmarn, and it doesn't matter, but it really, really helps you to save time, energy, frustration, and also money, because you will end up buying better gear for your situation. You already progressed a little bit. You can buy something that you can stick with for 2 or 3 or 4 years if you want, and not buying something and then reselling it and getting something else and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah,
that is extremely true. And I see this, working on a windsurf station, I see this with any kind of sport. You see it in windsurfing, kitesurfing, now wingfoiling, everything.
Yeah.
Like, take a lesson. Everybody thinks we're always just trying to sell them the lessons just to make money. What they realize is actually from the lessons, we don't make that much money compared to like renting, because renting, I have to just give you equipment, you go, and I don't have to deal with you at all. I make the same amount of money without wasting the time, because on the lesson I would have to, pay the teacher. You also use the equipment, same amount of time. But for you as the customer, you will rent and you will progress much faster, because there's someone there telling you, look, I've made these mistakes, don't do this, do this. Yeah. And this is skipping like, a whole hour of you being in the water alone. Just one sentence can skip a whole hour of torture, let's say, on the water. So it's definitely worth it. Like you said, not selling, like anywhere you are. I'm not talking about just coming to our station here in Rhodes. I mean, anywhere you are in the world, if you are going to try it and you have the choice between first time taking a lesson or first time just renting on your own and doing it, take a lesson. It'll make your life easier for sure.
And I mean, that's kind of out of scope, but my point of view, I would really like to hear your point of view on how to find a good teacher, because a good teacher is key here. Is maybe if you have the chance, like watch them dealing with a bottleneck of their students. Like if a student, like is having a problem, like as you said, there's some difficulties, and the teacher is able to fix it, like pointing out like, hey, this is your problem and this is how you can deal with your problem, like in a short amount of time. And the student has this kind of breakthrough, like this is a great teacher. This is an outstanding teacher.
Yeah.
Because most of the teachers, some teachers, they just stick with a book. They go by the book and like, okay, the students are not getting it, because you're giving them the same explanation that probably he or she can't relate to it. So
it's true, and it would be nice to have an easy way to find a good teacher, obviously, but it's extremely hard. The one way, like you said, but I think it takes some knowledge from the viewer side. So not everybody can do this, is what you just said, to sit and watch and kind of understand, oh, look, he's doing the right thing and he's helping out. And, like in windsurfing, you can see the difference when the teacher just sits on the shore and shouts things, and the student is having a big problem, let's say, and getting really tired, and the teacher just doesn't do anything. Just said, he'll float out, or he'll eventually do it. Or you see the teacher going, But then you see the other teacher, and you see the other teacher, and the student's having a problem, and he's already in the water, and he'll actually go and swim out to the student or something. Obviously, when I say swim out, I'm talking about Greece, not in Germany in the freezing cold. Don't expect a teacher to swim out in the freezing cold. But like you see how the teacher reacts. But it's hard for someone to understand this. I think another kind of tell. And again, I'm not trying to promote my station over others, because most stations in my area are family owned, and they're like a bit smaller and a bit more like friendly stations, let's say. Like the difference is a family owned station and a smaller station. Usually, if they're bringing teachers, they're going to pay more attention into who they're bringing. Like we, for example, we bring specific people. If we train them up and we can bring them another year, we will bring them back. Always. Like we have instructors that's been coming to us for 13 years already, and this is not his main job. This is like his summer hobby job, but he's really good. The customers love him, and anytime he wants to come back, I will always say yes. I will not say, oh no, I have someone else or something like this. I think small stations and kind of family run stations, kind of like us and the guys next to us, they focus more on who they bring, and they make sure that people do their job right. So I've had teachers where they don't do the job right, and they insist on doing it their way, and I'm telling them, look, it's not good, and I'll tell them once, I'll tell them twice, I'll tell them 3 times. And if you really, really insist on doing it your way, and your way is obviously not working, like you can see all the other teachers, the students are flying and your student is not working. And this is another red flag, when the teacher blames the student. It's never the student's fault, right? Every student learns differently. It's a teacher's job to develop his teaching style towards the student, not the other way around. So I think small stations kind of pay much more attention to that, and really make sure that teachers do the right thing. If they don't do the right thing, they will just tell them, look, you go away. You either change or sorry.
Yeah.
Whereas I've been to some big stations where the boss maybe hasn't even met some of the instructors, and the manager just wants to have the staff there to help out and whatever. And it's too big to kind of control everything, and like customers are numbers, kind of this kind of style. Like I think this also makes a big difference. Not that you can't find good instructors in stations like those, obviously. It's just that there's a higher chance of them having not good instructors because there's not as much checkup on them. But I think the best way is what you said, like try and look at a teacher and see if they're doing the right thing. But it's hard for many people to know that. And then it's just a matter of luck.
But if we try to stick with like easy signs, I think what you said is perfect. Like see if the teacher gets frustrated or maybe shouting with the students, that's a red flag. You see that a lot in kitesurfing lessons. And
I think many people can be confused with the shouting, like because the way we teach here, for example, the teacher's in the water. And he sends out the student, and it's quite windy, so you need to shout. And a lot of people think it's being a bit aggressive. Not the students, the people looking outside. I think the best thing to see when the student comes back. What happens? Most of my teachers will be like, "Yeah, good job, but let's try and fix this," and they'll have a little explanation and a kind of positive reinforcement. Not just whatever, you failed, let's go back and try again. I think that's what shows the big difference.
If you see students having fun, that's a good sign.
Exactly. If the student is enjoying it, doesn't matter if they're doing well or not, because everyone learns at a different pace. That's
great advice. So coming back to your wingfoil experience, I think we covered already a ton. Now maybe let's talk a little bit about how to get on the foil, because that's something like, okay, you know how to plane, you know how to keep your balance, how to not touch the tip with on the water, also you keep your wing up, you're kind of planing back and forth. Maybe you're even starting to try some turns. But little disclaimer from my side, if you're turning and you're planing, it will never feel like you're 100% sure to make the turn. It's always a little bit like sketchy.
For me, I'm still on the practicing my turns. Unfortunately, I haven't had enough, like as many sessions as I would like. Like in the summer here, we have everyday wind, and it kind of grows throughout the day. So like mornings, for example, would be perfect for, and this is what I'm kind of planning to do, would be perfect for wing foiling. But now in the winter, when I have it, the winds are either like crazy storm winds, like 30 plus knots, big waves, stuff like that, or nothing. The light winds are really, really, really rare, like to have a light wind day. So I've had 4 or 5 goes on the foil so far. I'm already trying some turns, but getting up on the foil, I think the most important thing to learn, to answer your question, is the pumping, like the actual rhythm of the pumping. And a lot of people, when I say pumping, they think of only pumping the wing or only pumping the legs. No, it has to be like both together and at a really like smooth kind of sequence. They kind of it works together. Wing, although it's not connected, it works very much together, the wing and the board, for getting up. So the pumping obviously is kind of like one thing I've kind of learned is in the beginning I was really opening up my arms to kind of pump like this. I find it doesn't do the right kind of pumping. I like to keep my elbows in a little bit, so that way I have more control over the actual wing. So pump with the wing, and at the same time you've got to pump with the board, and the pumping with the board is kind of like a pop, like an ollie. I don't know how you would call it. Kind of like lift the nose and then back down. So you're kind of doing this the whole time, and eventually, but it's not only just doing this, right? You don't push down and push up like this. They do this while pushing forwards. So that's what I really found helps kind of creating momentum. So you're doing this to your board the whole time, and then on this part, it's when you have the chance to get up. Now, of course, I think the harder part, and this is what really probably didn't look at all elegant for when someone was watching me from the beach, I'm sure, was synchronizing the two in a nice pace. Because I'm used to windsurfing. Windsurfing, your sail is kind of connected to the board, so you have no choice but to synchronize it and stuff like that. But for wing foiling, it's kind of, how to explain it? Like when the wind is coming in.
Yes.
I guess. So when you bring it closer to you, that's the point where your board should have been pointing up. Right. So that kind of, so like wing in, board up, wing out, board down kind of situation. I think I'm saying it right. I think I'm saying it right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's because what you said, like you want to push it forward. So when you pull, you generate speed by the wing. So you pull and you want to do something with that speed. You want to create a forward upward motion because it comes down by itself. That's just gravity.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you do that, and also something I found with the pumping, which is kind of strange to me because, like I said, I don't have foil experience really. So most of my experience is coming from normal, like board being on the water kind of sports, like windsurfing. When you pump, I think it's don't give up on pumping. It's quite tiring, but don't give up, because I found that sometimes I'm pumping and I really feel very little momentum or push or generation of wind, there. But then suddenly I'm up. As long as I don't stop, I'm suddenly up and going. Like it doesn't need as much wind once you get the hang of it. So like I said, on the first session, you need more wind than you think. But once you get the hang of it, you realize like, actually, I don't need that much wind at all. Like it's 90% technique of actually getting up in light wind. So it's, you got to really get good at pumping. And I guess you can practice a little bit on the beach and on the land, at least the wing part. But you're going to have to practice that in the water because you need the flow of the water. You need the board moving under you to get the hang of it. And once you can generate that power and get up, but like I said, the power, sometimes it feels less than you think you will need. And then, but suddenly, as long as you keep going at it, the movement of the board alone will get you up. And once you're up, that's it. It doesn't need much power to keep going.
Yeah.
So really the hard part is getting up. Like this is what tires you out.
Yeah. I mean, the interesting part is what you just said, that don't give up on pumping. I think that's a mistake that I still do sometimes, that I'm waiting for a gust. And if I can't pump myself out in 3-4 pumps, I wait for another gust.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm going to try. Sure.
Yeah, definitely don't give up. I mean, I find also that the wing pumping is pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. Like there's no special, okay, this hand in, this hand out. It's like as you would hold the wing, just pump it. And it goes with your body. So what I found, how I kind of realized this don't stop pumping thing is I start paying much more attention to the feeling I was getting in my legs. And I was realizing that every pump I was doing, even though I wasn't feeling much wind, every pump I was doing, I was feeling for a split second, a little bit of lift, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And suddenly I was out of the water and I was flying. And, with my experience and the feeling I normally have, I wouldn't expect to be getting up with that much power in my hands, because that's what I usually look for as a windsurfer, power in my hands, some sort of pull. But as long as there's even a little bit of pull, I think a lot of the focus has to go on the feet and getting the board properly and actually focus on what are you feeling? Are you getting up? Because obviously don't just keep pumping for half an hour and kill yourself if there's no chance of getting up,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think just not to overcomplicate it, if someone is watching us, like moving the wing and in a pumping motion and then trying to synchronize your legs to move the board, just give it a try. Don't overthink it. That would be also my way. Just figure it out. Like you will feel like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Just be open-minded.
I feel like a lot of things in wing foiling come very naturally. Like I think you shouldn't overthink the whole thing. That's why also another reason I don't overtake information before I try it for the first time, because I think your body, especially if you are someone that involved in board sports and water sports, I think especially then your body kind of knows what it has to do.
Yeah.
So you give it a command and it figures out the rest. But definitely don't overthink it. Just go for it and you will feel the pump and the smoothness and the flow of the board.
Yeah. Maybe that leads us, because you said like you're focusing more on the feeling in your legs. Maybe that leads us to foot position on the board. I mean, guys, I feel like this is something where I see a lot of mistakes from myself, but also from people that I try to teach. Like, where did you put your feet? Well,
definitely feet position is important. And I think that's what it would help if you had a board with foot straps, that it kind of lets you know where your feet has to be, because the foot straps are there, obviously. But the one I have, the 122 RD, I think it's because it's their biggest version, it's strapless for the wing. So when you go for wingman, it hasn't got an option to put straps in, so it's strapless. And I was playing around with my feet a lot in the beginning. And what I found was, well, first I had it too far back, because obviously the board has more volume in the back, and I had it too far back. Then I found also that although it helped later on, after I got better, I found that I had my feet probably too wide apart. You don't actually need such a wide stance. I was kind of thinking like a surf stance, like a wave stance, but you don't probably need that much. Later on, I realized just be comfortable. And then I started bringing my feet a little bit more forward, because I realized I needed that motion for the dipping the board kind of down. And then once you're up on the foil, usually it wants to lift like this. So you need to keep some weight on the front. Yeah. So one of the first times I got up, I was so far back myself. Like I managed to get up, but I was so far back myself that the whole time I was just leaning onto the front leg to keep the board straight. So I was like, okay, this is not how it's supposed to be. I'm sure I've seen people do it and they look much more comfortable than this. So you have to play around a lot. I don't want to give specific, I would say, feet positions, because every board might be different. But I think the important thing would be your back leg, which is involved a lot in the pumping and kind of lifting the sail. Your back leg has to be over where you've set the foil. Right? So your foil,
the mast position, right?
The mast, mast of the foil. Let's say the mast is here. This is your board. It usually doesn't extend much out of the back there, like your board. So your back foot would be on top of the mast. I think that's the most important. And then the front one kind of works with the length of your board and how much pressure you need on the front to keep it straight when you're up. But make sure that you feel comfortable for pumping, like you have control. Because also when I was too far back in the beginning, I was pumping and the board was doing this, like the nose was just not staying in a straight line. So you want to have control over that pump that you're doing. Yeah. And once you're up, you want to be able to relax and the board stays straight, not have to put all your weight on the front because you are way too far back. Yeah.
Maybe one thought on, because you're totally right. Like it's hard to give specifics because every board is different. But maybe if you have your rear foot as kind of a calibration point, so to say, over your mast. Yeah, you should be in a regular stance somehow. If you're too far stretched out, as you said, that's a problem. If you're too like hip wide, that's too little. So find a position. Maybe also move a little bit with your back foot to the front. Maybe that feels on your board better, depending on your foil. But I think where we can be specific is like on the center line of the board. Like so the center line for me is like the point when you connect the nose and the tail. And
definitely. I was talking more about the actual on the length of the board, but on the center line, your back foot has to be completely on the center line, I think. Yeah. And your front foot can be like a step or like half a step to your side. Yeah. To kind of stop that flying over the other side. But it's definitely not like windsurfing where you step, on the rail of the board to get up. You need to be in the center of the board. Yeah.
And your pressure, like from my point of view, your pressure should not be on your heels only. You should have this stance where you're planing your feet and you're giving pressure through your heels, but also through your toes, and you're kind of controlling the board.
It's like we said before, it's a lot like surfing. Like you gotta be like flat on the board, and then when you want to maneuver or when you feel like the wing is over pulling or something, then you kind of lean either side and get used kind of calibrated like that. Don't just expect to sit on one edge and it will fly. It will not. It will just turn like you fly upwind. But it's definitely just getting used to it and being comfortable. I think that's important. Like be comfortable. Like you said, a regular stance, not nothing crazy.
Yeah.